So now if you could turn the lights back down, that would be great. Could you just flick the lights down for me? Yeah. Thanks very much. So, as I said, I wanted to be at a project, so that I would have a much better chance of seeing the dogs than if I were on my own. And I also knew that PDC collared some of the dogs. Now, bear in mind that they're not a project with a huge budget, so these are not fancy GPS tracking collars that download their data, on an automatic basis via satellite. These are collars that allow you to find the dog when you're out with the antenna, sometimes. And I should just point out, of course, this is the tracking antenna here. The collars all have this fluorescent material here, which is to help prevent motorists who may come across the dogs at night. They cross out of the park all the time. And this on the front of the collar is an anti-snare device that Greg came up with for the collars. It's actually a metal plate that's bolted onto the front of the collar, and it has about 5 series of studs like this, one here, and around the front. And the idea is that if the dog walks into a snare, that the studs will hopefully catch the wire so that it can't slip above or below the collar and cut the dog's jugular. Because the dogs have the snares are not set for the dogs, but a lot of dogs get caught in them. So now when you're tracking the dogs, as I said, you might think, oh, that's great, we've got this collars on the dogs, so we'll be able to find them. Basically what happens is that you drive around in a very hot vehicle. Obviously it's very hot outside. The vehicle's very hot because spare parts in Zimbabwe are a nightmare at the moment. Lots of homemade repairs. If you sit in the passenger seat, your feet burn. The floor of the vehicle is so hot. We were frequently driving around with the doors wide open to try and get some cooler air inside because it just overheated all the time. And on one particularly memorable occasion, we were on the main road into the national park, and I was sitting in the passenger seat, and suddenly the vehicle slams down on its back axle, and our back wheel shot past us along the road and hit a tree and went 15 feet up in the air. And luckily we came to a halt without rolling over, which was quite fortunate, really. So anyway, that's pretty much what you're doing. You're driving around for hours at a time, and you're listening on the headphones here for the beep of a collared dog. And each collar has its own frequency, so you're plugging in that number, and you're not searching for any dog with a collar, you're searching for one collar. So the chances of finding them are still fairly slim. And all you can hear all the time is like this for hours and hours and hours. And after a while you start imagining phantom beeps. Stop the vehicle, stop, I heard a beep. Oh no, I didn't. No. Lots and lots of that. That went on all the time. It's very aggravating. And when you take the headphones off, you can't hear anything for a few minutes. So when you do eventually hear a beep from a collared dog, which is a very exciting moment, you then can switch to the directional antenna, which will tell you which direction the dog is. And then you actually hope that you can find them, because they like to lie up in really, really thick, sandy areas full of thorns. We had so many flat tires, I can't even count them. This is Jealous. He is the PDC's main dog tracker. He knows the park like the back of his hand and all the areas around. We weren't just in the national park, we were in the hunting concessions and forestry lands as well. And I've got a little piece of video here just to show you some of the dogs. Let's see here. We won't worry about the sound, but this is where we found two of the dogs actually. These were inside the national park, and they're both collared. And this was quite strange because this was a father and son. So this was the father, and this was the son, and they'd split up. The son had gone off and formed a new pack. He was part of a new pack, and we weren't quite sure why they were together. The spotted hyena seemed to be looking at us and suddenly realised, oh, I'm going to be chased by the dogs. Now, The dogs will frequently have their kills stolen by hyenas. The hyenas will also kill painted dog pups if they can catch them, if they can find them. So these two dogs had, they were outnumbering the hyena, so they decided to chase it off on that occasion. Soon after that, we also found, this is a very bad photo, I'm afraid, we were bouncing around in the vehicle. There's two dogs over here. They'd actually killed this kudu, and the lions had stolen it from them. There were two lionesses here. We know that the dogs had killed the kudu because we were changing flat tyre about 100 yards away when this happened, and also the dogs wouldn't scavenge from a lion kill. It's too dangerous. So they were hanging around to see if the lions were actually going to leave them anything. The lions also will kill adult dogs if they can catch them, and they will kill the pups and steal kills, obviously, which is one of the reasons why the painted dogs eat so fast. You don't find them lying around a kill from yesterday, like you might do with lions. In the area, if someone eats their food too fast, people will say, oh, he's an iganyana, painted dog. And the reason they do this is that they can actually regurgitate food at will. It's not like vomiting. And they can control the amount they regurgitate as well. So it doesn't actually matter if one dog fails to make it to the kill. The point is to eat as much, as fast as you can, before hyenas or lions find your kill. And then they can actually redistribute the meat amongst the pack at a later date. And they use this technique to feed an adult dog that they might leave behind at the den with pups, a babysitter, and then they can feed that dog afterwards. So that's, they can strip a carcass incredibly fast. One of the very obvious things whenever you visit Wangi is the number of elephants. I mean, I think there are now believed to be about 35,000 elephants in Wangi National Park. Before they started pumping the boreholes, there were about 4,000. And there are actually really too many elephants. Greg has been doing some research, and he believes that the elephants are actually having a negative impact on the dogs. Not that they actually physically harm the dogs, but they change the habitat. The bush becomes more open when there's a lot of elephants around, and the dogs like to hunt in thick bush. So if the area is much more open, then their hunts are longer, they're less efficient. It's easier for other predators to find their dens. It's easier for other predators to find their kills and steal them much more quickly. So the dogs are actually doing much better in areas where there are not so many elephants. And elephants did actually provide us with another little piece of video that I have to show you. This was quite amazing, really. Jealous and I had been at this watering hole for this trough area in the morning looking for dogs, and there were no elephants around. And we left for a couple of hours, and when we came back, we found this elephant calf stuck upside down in this very narrow trough. And there were no other elephants around when we arrived. All the elephants that you see in this video came along much later. They ignored this calf, paid no attention to it until it wiggled its feet round in the air, and then they would run away. We sat and watched for quite some time to see if we thought the mother was in the area, but didn't seem to be. So eventually we actually radioed Peter, the PDC project manager, and he came out and proceeded to pull the elephant calf out of the trough by putting a tow rope around its front legs. You see, now all these guys were in front of us, and so we had to keep an eye out for them, and we really weren't sure if this calf was injured or what was going to happen here.
Oh my goodness.
We actually, I put this on YouTube so that I could load it onto my website and put it in my newsletters, and then had a call from a guy working with a production company. So now if any of you